Hello and welcome to Reanimated. This is a podcast about all things zombie, undead, otherwise moldering in the grave or without, above the grave. My name is Stuart. I'm one of your hosts. I'm coming from California. Coming at us from the East Coast, from New York, from the borough of Brooklyn, is our other amazing host of this podcast, and that is H.A. Conrad. Hello, H.A.
Hello, hello.
Welcome. Thanks for coming on to the show.
You know, it's what we do. It's what we do.
It is. It tends to be what we do. We have a doozy of a show today because we are going through 4, not 1 or 2 or 3, but 4 episodes of Fear the Walking Dead. And oh my God, it hurt me. It hurt me in more ways than one.
Oh, this hurt in so many ways, but I kind of still agree with our decision to do this. Ripping off the Band-Aid or just like diving straight in to the morass of these episodes, I think was the right way to do it.
Perhaps. I mean, time will tell, I guess. We still have another 8 to go to kill this season off. If it will die or if it will just wander around aimlessly through the Texan wastes.
I mean, it is The Walking Dead, so this is sort of on brand, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just wandering and anyway, it's a Walking Dead franchise in any case. Before we get into that, just a couple of very, very brief news items. The wrap up of The Walking Dead. There's like a whole little thing about that. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Just that it was kind of everywhere. If you follow any, I mean, I guess I follow them on Instagram. So I kept seeing Angela Kang posting little videos of the cast and crew kind of all celebrating the last shot. And then I guess Nicotero and Reedus did a heartfelt video and have been, they're wrapping up 11 years of their life.
Yep. And honestly, it made me a little sad, like just seeing some of those things. I know that a lot of them are doing spinoffs, so that's fine.
Nicotero and Reedus are going to be working together, I assume, on the next show, but maybe that's just another couple years and then they'll be done. Yeah.
So it was a little, I don't know. I kept seeing them on their Instagram feed, so I was like, oh. But yeah, so there we have it. And then slightly older news. I guess we just didn't talk about this or didn't see it, but it made sort of a resurgence. But the spinoff of Tales of the Walking Dead is going to feature Samantha Morton, like a story about her as the leader of the Whisperers. So I think she's just going to be in one episode, but they're not like getting into much more than that. But she's kind of an interesting, weird character. So
definitely a character who more stories could be told about Alpha and her rise to power for sure. They did a few retrospectives about her, but definitely could see some more there. And the reason why this news popped up this weekend or in the last couple days is that they just cast Lauren Glazer to be in that episode. And Glazer is an alumnus of Mindhunters, which is a show I think that you and I both enjoy.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, we had talked about the cast before, but it's got a lot of people in it that should be very familiar to everybody. But Anthony Edwards, Parker Posey, Olivia Munn, and Beth Davids, who I absolutely adore. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then, of course, Danny Ramirez from The Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Jesse Usher from The Boys. So there's a lot of people in this. And I'm assuming these are little single episodes that they're just going to explore, but it's kind of like a short stories of Walking Dead, I suppose. But so anyway, looking forward to seeing that actually. But what we are not looking forward to seeing or talking about is the recap of this Fear the Walking Dead. As you may have surmised, gentle listener, this was just painful for us anyway. I kind of just decided to sort of take I view it as a Kyle Diaz way of looking at it, just embracing some of the badness and terribleness.
Kyle Diaz forswore this entire franchise 5 years ago.
He forswore it. I'm just talking about his general attitude when he dives into shows, or at least this is what I choose to believe. It's probably incorrect, but but anyway, we decided to go through these 4 episodes just because it was it was kind of unbearable. It was unbearable to go through them 1 or 2 at a time. So we are reviewing, recapping the final 4 that were part of this half season or whatever it is. So Till Death, Reclamation, The Portrait, and Padre. And unfortunately, I have to admit, it was almost worse than I could possibly have imagined. So
there were one or two spots of lightness or brightness here. And in this first episode, Till Death, I mean, that's Aisha Tyler.
yeah,
Kind of a very different turn for her. I haven't seen her do any dramatic acting before, or maybe even any acting. I've definitely heard her on podcasts, seen her do stand-up, seen her be a host of shows. She is a bright, sparkling, witty person.
yeah, no, Aisha Tyler was the bright spot in this. It's just some of the storyline, and it's weird. I guess like even watching these 4 episodes, it felt like, I don't want to say cartoonish, but sort of
Oh
cartoonish, like
no, yeah, 100%. I'm with
like
you. I'm with you.
and sort of exploring these weird themes that are just very odd. And especially in this one, it had this like pulpy, weird feeling to it or tone to it that just didn't seem based in any kind of reality. So with that said, but she was amazing. I thought Aisha Taylor was wonderful. And in fact, I was just kind of like, this is not, I wish we had a bit more of this, or there was like, this had been just, I'd rather see more of her than some of the other themes of this episode.
One of my big questions from this episode was who gave Sherry a horse again? Where, like, so this is a big Dwight and Sherry episode. This kind of
Yeah.
reintroduces us to them as
think
these dark horses. This is their
in general,
their mercenary name or whatever, as their group
yeah.
name.
In general, where are all these horses coming from? This is a big freaking mystery. Is there an underground paddock that they're using? How are they feeding these things in a world that has been laid to waste by, radiation? like these horses would not be alive.
No, and especially with Sherry, who has been killed. Well, at the end of last season, she just killed a horse for no reason, like rode it to death.
Yeah.
And then their other horse pulled the doors off of their storm cellar and then ran into the fallout. So we assumed that horse was dead too. But clearly horses are immune to radiation on this show. So they're everywhere.
Yeah. But in any case, we see a lot of Dwight and Sherry, as, some may or may not remember. They ended up in like the basement of this house after helping the family there get rid of some bad people.
Teddy people. They were Teddy cultists who had a second thoughts and decided to take shelter.
But weirdly and honestly, like this is like just beyond the realm of anything that is believable. During this sort of like post Fallout, Dwight and Sherry have decided to become kind of like a strange little vigilante cowboy gang called the Dark Horses, and utilize entirely my favorite mechanism on this show, walkie-talkies, to widely I don't know, both to, I guess, get people like, it's like they have a code. And
it's not like they have a code that that they have a code, HA, because they never stop talking about
their code. And also people are able to get on this one channel that apparently everybody knows about, and advertise their whereabouts. And they sort of go into these bizarro situations where they save fruit for people, and
they murder people for taking fruit,
and they murder other people because it's part of their code. And then they come back to the basement, and then there's the underlying theme, which we started to see obviously in the last episode, about looking for Padre, whatever the heck that is, which is, I guess, the promised land where everybody is good and non-radiated.
I mean, it's where Kim Dickens is. Let's just be honest with ourselves.
We know. But then shouldn't they call it Madre? Just say
right.
Anyway, so they go on this adventure, but they get like pulled into strands like tentacles for a very unlikely reason. Though I really do love Aisha Taylor. But they're supposed to go and find her because Strand says they're worried about her. But ostensibly it's because she's escaped from his weird little complex, and may have something else going on. And we do get to see her, and it's this whole thing, and they've done this kind of theme before, and they did it in The Walking Dead with the Whisperers and Beta, but she is a minor celebrity that like a wrestling team. And that's her whole like reason for living, is that she's looking for her other, and her character's name is Mickey. She's looking for her better half, and managed to escape the tower covered in telephone books. And okay,
back a little bit, when Dwight and Sherry are in the tower, I just have to remark upon this. Christina Evangelista is playing Sherry. She's wearing like these ridiculously tight clothes, and they're all very clean and laundered. And it just kind of sent me back on one of these things that I think about with Walking Dead every so often, which is some characters, and I'm really just thinking of Dwight, and maybe for the most of the time, Rick too, look the part. They look like they've been living outside for 10 years. Like Dwight's neck beard is something to be like written about in books. His shirts are dirty. Even when he changes shirts, he just puts on another dirty looking shirt. Like Sherry, when she's in the tower, and I assume this is what she was been riding around in, is wearing like fashionably like, not, I don't know what these pants are called these days, but they're like 4 inches too short. They're like 2022 fashionable, right? And she's wearing a shirt that looks like it's painted on her. And then
clean, very, very
it's
clean.
So clean. There's no sweat marks. There's no dirt.
What I was also thinking about is that the actor who plays Dwight has to go through that makeup all the time for
I'm wondering, is his facial scar getting more gnarly, or is it? I was kind of thinking I should do a side by side. It looks like maybe it's just his hair is weirder.
I think his hair is weirder, but I do think that the scar has morphed a bit and they've done a little bit more. But I mean, it's got to be an incredibly long process in the makeup chair every day.
Yeah.
Even if they use a prosthetic to kind of cover some of this, that's still like an intense process.
Gotta be. But they also do a wardrobe change in this episode. Like right after the scene in the tower, they leave the tower and suddenly Sherry's wearing a different shirt. And this one has like a little strappy thing that we see later after they've had the fight in the grapple chapel. And again, this shirt is clean. Mickey is at least wearing like a gray t-shirt that's kind of rumpled, and she gets covered up in blood and tactical gear a lot of the time. But I just wish they would apply things evenly. And what Dwight is 100% living up to my expectations of what people should look like 10 years after the apocalypse, when you should look like you're homeless.
Right.
And he does for the most part. But Sherry looks like she's stepping out of the pages of a catalog, and it doesn't make sense.
All the time. And especially all this time on horseback, on our mysterious radioactive resistant horses.
And they used to do this with Alicia too. Like Alicia's hair was always kind of immaculate and never gnarled up.
And now, she always looked amazing. Yep, it's
these days, obviously we'll get there, but she's not looking 100%, and there's reasons, but it's still, yeah, I don't know. Again, this is just a pet peeve I think that I've always had with this show, but it was very apparent in Sherry in this episode.
Right. So anyway, we follow them through this unlikely scenario, and then they go back and forth because they've been promised a place in the tower. If they bring Mickey back, and obviously they know that Strand wants her for some other reason. They know that. And so
do we know what that reason is, other than that she's a badass?
No,
and the fact that he thinks that she has information that could be dangerous to him.
Yeah. And again, just the idea that it's just because she escaped seems a little far-fetched. But ultimately instead, Sherry decides to help Mickey find her person.
Well, this is also after they find that the Larson family has been brutally murdered, including the young girl who we just got introduced to.
They have reasons, but it's this like bizarre thing where it's like, okay, they're with this family. The family's like, we need to go. Well, where are you going to go? And you don't know where Padre is. So how are you going to find it? And so I don't think that it was crazy to stay in that basement while they kind of figure things out. It all seems just very odd and unlikely. Again, they've created this themselves, the writers, but this whole scenario and world that they have created is just, none of these people would be alive. And certainly not finding enough food to keep all of these people plus horses going. No matter how miraculous that tower is of hydroponic food sources. But anyway, they go and they're looking for Mickey. There's some like cool scenes with her. Just in general, I think she's a great actor, and I really enjoyed every bit of her on scene. I think she is just this great addition, but all the stuff with Sherry and Dwight seems absolutely insane to me. And, they decide to examine once again the whole theme that they have escaped Negan and that whole the sanctuary, and they keep bringing that up. And it's like, well, yeah, of course, you too wouldn't be buying into this. I don't believe Dwight would have been buying into the whole tower scenario and having a place there. This is exactly what they left, but they need to hit you over the head with it, which I really honestly resented a bit. I don't know. What did you think about that?
I thought it was a little stupid that Sherry is once again leaving Dwight. They made it sound like it was more just like a relationship disagreement and that they would be fine and meet up later.
Yeah.
But obviously Dwight has to go through some stuff in the meantime and has to also reunite with the New Yorker with the dragon fruit. I don't know why all these East Coast people are in Texas.
I know.
But yeah, he finds the Polaroids, and the Stranded basically hired this guy to take them out, and so that persuades him that he was making the wrong choice. When, like you said, he's already been down this road. He's done this before. Sherry talks about she's talking to Mickey about we once went to a guy like a Strand for to save us, and it almost destroyed us. She doesn't mention that it got her sister killed.
Right.
She doesn't even mention that part of it because that was so many seasons ago. Who can even keep track, I guess.
Right. And then the other thing, which I was just like, oh, please just stop. They keep talking about how great it was that they found each other and how unlikely. Yeah, it's unlikely. Completely implausible.
And completely implausible. Those letters the fact that she was even leaving notes for a person that for all she knew had been killed in the Savior War, makes zero sense. Yeah.
So in any case, all of this leads into them going to try to find Mickey's partner. And
this is okay. I love the song Welcome to Jamrock by Junior Gong. And it was probably good, maybe just because I like the song, but it was very strange. Do they do musical fight montages a lot on this show or in The Walking Dead?
No, not really. That definitely stood out. And I did like the idea that it was a fight montage, but again, it's
when they do musical montages, it's usually like we're building a community or
right.
we're all raking leaves together or something.
They might do some dramatic music a little bit, but not like a montage. So that was a little unusual. Also, they probably had to pay a ton of money to use that song, so that's interesting.
I wonder if it was Lenny James who he was the director for this episode too. I don't know if that was one of his choices or Aisha Tyler was like, I'm not going to be in your show unless I get to do a violent montage to Junior Gong.
Right. I also like how they bring WWE into this, just like a wrestling thing. Cool. And this is the whole thing where she's like this celebrity and he's like this huge fan, not just of her, like fan in a way that's like he knows the moves, which again, do you find this likely? I do not. But that's where they go with this. And can we talk about the fight montage though? Because this is one of many things that I saw in this episode in terms of them taking down walkers, but just like they go in the whole sort of place where they're supposed to be finding her significant other is this gym basically, and they get her all like get Mickey all like dolled up or put into her outfit, her telephone book outfit, to go and they do the guts thing to get her so she can go and check and see where he is. There doesn't seem to be a huge amount of planning or strategy into this because there's just like this herd of walkers. However, the herd is not so insane that they wouldn't be able to draw this group away and sort of like divide and conquer, right?
Probably, yeah. The banging sign, I think, might have been the problem, but they couldn't.
Well, the banging sign, sure, but you're talking about people that are very skilled in this, and instead they kind of go into this, and then Sherry does a crazy thing, like breaks the whole door of this gym, and like there's like a swarm of them coming in. It does set it up so that they're in the ring, and they get to do like lots of cool things related to that. So that was fun. But again, this is very exaggerated and I probably it's not supposed to be, but I say like cartoonish and odd.
Yeah, the show has taken a turn from gritty and air quote realistic zombie apocalypse to much more of a, like you said at the beginning, this is a cartoon, just live action. Between Strand and their set pieces, their action, the dialogue, the plot, it's becoming much more ridiculous and abstract. Yeah, and so by the end of this episode, after the cool fight scene and answering the radio to go on yet another rescue mission, now with Mickey apparently fine with being their sidekick.
Yeah.
They get ambushed by a Tusken Raider who says, "Take us to Padre," and that's the end of that episode. And good riddance. Actually, don't see Mickey again after this, even though she's referenced. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, I know, right? Like, again, it's like, I wonder what I wonder what the contract was, or like, it's interesting. But
this next one is called Reclamation, and this is an Althea episode, not just her.
I'm Althea and her freaking camera. I'm so excited to talk about this.
At the end of this episode, she smashes the camera, but we've had our hopes up before about this stupid character, and they've always brought her back. And they find another camera, or they strap her to a GoPro and send her into a building with Dwight. Like, I'm sorry, fool me once, shame on me, you rather. I don't know what's going on anymore. Al is recording videos and talking to the camera. I really dislike this mechanism. They go back to it over and over in this episode, where apparently she's talking to Isabel, and Isabel is just silently filming her. And this is the weirdest relationship I've ever heard of in my life.
Yep.
Where Al is just talking to her girlfriend, who is silently just taping everything she says.
Right. And this feels totally like a farewell episode. I had a lot of hopes about where this was going, and it didn't go. Oh God,
there. I thought she died a few times, and I was so excited for it. Every time she was about to die, I would write in my notes, I think Al's about to die. Tee hee hee. No, she didn't die. Spoiler alert, she's still alive at the end.
Yep.
And so Morgan is trying to persuade Al to come back. He has off screen, like in some, in the interceding episodes, gotten everybody else from that fort where they were staying. And they get, once again, Lucy, Daniel, I don't think Charlie gets one, Sarah, all get these like 2-second clips. They had to show up to work to be in this episode again for like just a second, just to say, why the hell are you recording this right now? And before, like, because they haven't had anything else to do. They've been in the Sarah episode, and now they were in this one for 20 seconds. This is the whole season, the whole half season. Daniel and Charlie, and not Sarah had her whole own episode. Wesley. They all got to show up to work for 2 days, and God, that's just, I don't know, man. I hope that they're getting paid even for episodes they're not in. That probably doesn't make sense. I don't think that's how this stuff works.
Yeah, and can we be honest? We've always wanted more of a Daniel and Lucy episode anyway, and we don't get to see enough of them. We just get all this Althea nonsense. So yay.
Yeah. And so this, it's Morgan, and Grace shows up to Al, and these 2 CRM soldiers are kind of like everybody, right? That's like the whole episode. And Isabel shows up at the very end. And can
we talk about how, once again, Althea's like all of her driving thing is about her freaking weird video stories again.
To the nth degree, where she's
again.
Like choosing her camera over Isabel at the end, and Morgan's like, this is weird. I have to agree with Morgan. Makes no sense.
And again, this is like, they bring the CRM into this. They bring in the whole fact that they get the coordinates to Daniel and Lucy et al. And that Isabel has put herself into danger again, or danger forever with the CRM, because she basically rescues them, as we saw in the helicopter, like, the daring helicopter and unlikely helicopter rescue scene. Can we talk about how, well, if she's flying around in a helicopter and they've got like tracking or whatever it is, of course they're going to find her. So maybe it's time to abandon the helicopter and not go to a place that is perhaps mapped out, which it's like, there's just so many implausible things. And they intersperse, as you mentioned, the entire episode with these like bizarre video clips. And I guess you're supposed to feel like nostalgic about it. All I can think is, no, not again.
Please stop. Please just stop. You can turn the transponder off too, if that's the, like, whatever the thing that was transmitting, she could to have just turned it off if she knew what she was doing. Also, can we also just quickly mention that Al, I think, flies a helicopter in this episode.
Yes. Like, when did
Althea.
that happen? When did that happen?
She's always had like this ridiculous encyclopedic knowledge of things that she should have no knowledge of because of quote journalism. It's always been ridiculous. But this was maybe the most stupid thing that this show has ever done, is to suggest that Al knows how to fly a helicopter because journalism or whatever. She also knows how to, operate a medieval cannon. And apparently so does Morgan, even though he'd never seen one until nighttime when he's trying to fix the fuse that Al had, that screwed up. Yeah. So there's just like nonstop problems with this one. Also, the fact that the CRM, how many times did they do a countdown to shoot
so
somebody?
many times.
It was like 8 times. They're like, okay, on one, or whatever it is they say. And then they never do it. All they do is shoot at MRAPs, which are bulletproof. Like this is probably the worst thing I've ever seen.
Right. And also one of my least favorite things, the drama with the walkie-talkies. Don't kill her. She's my life. Oh, like all this like crazy stuff where people are on walkie-talkies and it's just insane.
We have a daughter.
Yeah. And so I don't know that we need to talk too much more about this other than to say farewell, Althea. I hope, but I doubt it's gone. But anyway, she and Isabel are going off into the sunset, potentially being tracked, and she no longer has her video camera, but I think she will still find another one.
Yeah, there's no way she doesn't end up with a camera because Shambliss and Goldberg, because of them. So the portrait. This is where we get to see how weird Victor is, I guess. Also, like still continuing in this cartoonish mode. The beginning of it is him sitting for this portrait. And then even though it's like a photorealistic painting by the time that sequence is done, he's like, oh, it sucks. You can't see me. Nobody can. And I'm just like, why does anybody hang out with this guy? He is the worst.
He's also becoming like this is what, Victor used to be one of my favorite characters, and they have made him so like mustache twirly, that villainous, that it's just really hard to, it's just very hard to deal with this. I don't know. I just like all the things that happen in this. And I mean, like, it just to me is like, it's just so bizarre. And still there's all these things that they're like, we don't want to talk about Alicia. We don't talk about Alicia, or like whatever it might be. There's all this stuff that they just don't have these honest conversations. So there's very like veiled and cloaked things about like, oh, Alicia wouldn't want to find me and whatever. It's like, oh yeah, because she threw her boyfriend off the roof or something, like there's all these like dumb things that go on in this. So again, all the things you and I hate the most about this series are, to me, most evident in this, although the next episode, again, has similar horrible things. But
like a lead among like crazy things that happen in this episode, and I can't really decide if this is a good thing or a bad thing, is they actually have Morgan poison Strand in this episode, which is extremely unlike Morgan, the way that they've been writing him on this show. And right. I think that's why they did it, and that's why like it worked, and it's why Strand was taken in, and even Howard is like, I didn't expect that at all. And I don't know, what was your take on that? It's a very un-Morgan like thing to do, but this characters can change, right?
It's an un-Morgan like thing to do, and also it puts him and all these other people in danger because there's lots of things going on. And also, if it's so evident, like his hand is stained with the poison, so like they're not going to notice that before the end of this episode. Unlikely.
And he didn't think that his daughter was going to have to be on a course of antibiotics and they'd have to stay there for a couple of days while Strand slowly succumbed to poisoning.
Right. It just is like kind of odd. And then there's so much back and forth, and this is like how they really love to examine the different, character flaws and humanity, and what civilization is like after this. And so you have these insanely annoying back and forths between Strand and Morgan. And then putting in the middle of all this the baby Mo, and you've got like Morgan like, oh, I won't leave without the baby, give me the baby, and then suddenly Strand is all into the baby. It's like, what? Like, this is just bananas.
Yeah, I also was
And
very
talks about his dad. I'm like, are we going into
wait.
this insane like
Oh
therapy
yeah.
session here? Like, what is happening?
Well, he was poisoned at the time, but yeah, I was not a fan of the dangling the baby, a real baby, in front of
I know this poor
human
kid.
actors painted as zombies, and I don't know if they were making noises or if they were saying "coochie coochie coo," maybe, and it was looped in later. But
I
that
was thinking the same thing. I'm like, this poor little kid. Like, I don't know. Maybe there wasn't anybody there, and they like put those in later. I
you could
don't
see the
know.
arms. I
I
feel
know, I know. I just can't. Like, it was very hard to watch this poor because that looks pretty scary, and she was crying.
yeah,
So I don't know. Ethical issues here, I'd say.
definitely ethical issues. June also says something super dumb and annoying in this episode because she's like the only medical professional left in the world potentially, and I buy that. But she's like, not only is she was an ER nurse before, right? Now
Yeah,
she's a pediatrician. She's also like a radiation doctor, and talks about methylene blue and Prussian blue and this whole Prussian blue thing. Apparently, it is a real thing too, by the way. And so is methylene blue. But whether they need to lean on it quite as much as they have been, I don't know. But she
right.
says something super dumb here, which was that John Dory Jr. Died because he ran. He didn't want to play Virginia's game, and that's what killed him. And I'm like, no, June, he asked you to come with him, and you said no, and eventually it was Dakota who killed him. But if you'd been with him, if you'd gone with your husband, he'd be alive today. And
Right.
I mean,
Totally.
maybe they'll come to that conclusion, and she'll have to change her tune. But saying that he died because he ran, he was like dying of depression, living in Virginia's
Yeah.
colonies. So screw June for saying that. Screw the writers for putting those words in her mouth.
Yeah, that was terrible. And we also have to talk about this other faction who has this, like, they're using that errant non-exploded warhead to make weapons out of walkers.
Also,
And so
they've built a catapult.
yes. So
and not just like a crappy one. They've built one out of metal.
yeah, so there's all that going on. Kind of an interesting idea, at least in terms of like weaponizing walkers. But
it would be interesting if there weren't like just 5 or 6 of these guys, and Strand has again and again shown that he has like military superiority in the area.
right.
And so not only did they get there with a catapult undetected, right, they also, like, Strand's guys are not willing to just go out and kill them all.
Yeah.
Like,
it just seems, again, unlikely. And also,
John Dory could shoot those 5 guys in 5 seconds. I feel like, or maybe like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
And then, there's the other part of this is like, all right, so you've got this other faction, they're out there, you have all these patrols and you haven't come across any of these people. I don't know. It just feels, again, really implausible. The fact that you need Morgan's help is implausible. The fact that you're using a baby as bait and all this other stuff, implausible. But again, we all come back to the theme that Strand is like, did these things, and Alicia doesn't want to see him, but she might want to see Morgan. It just, again, just so annoying and ridiculous.
Wendell's also back in this episode in like a very strange sort of sidekicky role as radio guy to relay what John Dory Sr. is saying. Right. And then actually he does have like a laugh out loud moment later in this episode when Strand accuses him of maybe poisoning him, because he's like, you're just mad that I sent Sarah away. And Wendell's like, what? You did what? And that was actually pretty funny.
It was funny. And also, like, my theory that maybe the actor didn't want to be on the show anymore, so they actually showed him. So I'm like, all right, at least Wendell's here. That's all right. But yeah, so we leave this team where, like, they've now, at the end of all this, he almost throws Morgan off the roof, Strand does, and for poisoning him. And then Grace gets involved again with the walkie-talkie at the 11th hour to say that, oh, there's still more of these things walking around and I can help you. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately they're like, we'll not make Morgan a martyr. And then Morgan is supposed to go out and find Alicia. So that's where we leave this. And then I guess on to the next episode, which is Padre, and this is very much an Alicia episode, and so we actually get to find out what happened with Alicia. But
yeah, actually, at the end of this episode, at the end of whichever one we were just talking about, that's when Dwight and Sherry ride up to Morgan, right? And
right.
They go into this camp of Tusken Raiders, and it's Alicia's camp, apparently.
Yep.
There she is, she takes off her hat. And then the nuke zombies show up, and these idiots shoot them apparently right in the stomach to make them explode into a cloud of red powder, which is the bad powder.
I guess.
So Morgan's like, run away. And so they run away. And then the next episode is called Padre. And here we almost get, and I almost had to eat my words about like, show us a cool bunker episode. They still haven't, but it was closer, right? At least this guy who plays Will gets a little more screen time, even though he's dead in the current timeline. There's a lot of flashbacks here where we see Alicia like figuring out what she's doing. I mean, if this is the extent of the story of how Alicia came to be the leader of the bunker people, it's woefully inadequate. She just kind of starts to assert herself through mega violence, and they're like, cool, you're cool with us, we'll follow you anywhere, insane lady.
Well, like, they're also insane, and so like,
and they've been conditioned to think of her as their leader, I guess, which is maybe gonna be okay, but I don't think it's enough. It's not enough for me anyway.
No, and it doesn't make sense completely, because you would imagine that they, as nutty as they are, and it like would sort of want her to go along with their dogma, and she doesn't. She just is like, I'm the leader now, and you're not going to do this. And they're like, okay, boss lady.
You don't want us to do all the things that Teddy taught us to do? No problema. We're ready to listen to you.
So she's in this bunker, and she does find Will. And it's, again, we already know this because he said this, but like, he was an aide to Senator Vasquez and had been hiding. Senator Vasquez was killed. He was tied to the tree. And, this is how we finally learn not that much more about Padre, but just the fact that it supposedly exists, was a safe haven from this fallout. And that's like, and again, it's like, how do so many people know about this Padre thing, right? It's a little weird that this would be such a, like, well-known thing, yet so secret. And so it's going to be ridiculous when it actually gets revealed, I suspect.
You know how stupid it is too that there's like a top secret binder on her desk,
top secret,
that apparently doesn't have the location of the site in it, that only the Senator Vasquez knew it. Crazy. I was a little bit also eating my words that like, oh gosh, they name dropped Senator Vasquez 20 times in the first episode of the season, and then they just say he's dead. And they do sort of trot him back out. And there's this insane theory that Alicia has about him having the knowledge of Padre, and that he'll just walk there because he wants to go back.
She even says, I know this is insane. And it's like, yeah, it is, because it's not something that happens. Like, somehow walkers now have this little homing thing that they do, I guess.
So she's lost it. Like, and I get it. Like, 10 years into the apocalypse, wouldn't take me 10 years to go insane. That's for sure. But Alicia, it feels like, is going insane. You know what? Morgan's been insane like in 3 different seasons of the show. So it's fine. She gets to have an insane season. Morgan can be the stable one, maybe.
I don't know, but they're all still, they've got more of these radioactive, explosive walkers with the crazy dust, and covering themselves in radioactive guts, which Morgan even comments upon, but they still do anyway.
I think they're leaning back into the guts. Yeah, because,
they're way back into the guts. We saw Mickey do it. We're seeing other people do it. Yep, it's happening.
There I was thinking that when Gabriel went blind, the entire universe was going to be like, you know what? Yeah, guts is over, because in season two of Fear the Walking Dead, Nick became like this invincible dude who could go through crowds of zombies just by like dabbing a little bit on his forehead. And I remember when we first met Lucy and her scouts for the Colonia, she used to just have it like under her eyes, like it was
just a little bit, and that'll keep them away.
A dab will do you. But then I would think, Dave Erickson, who was the showrunner at that time, realized it was breaking all the possible tension that they had with the zombies. But here we haven't seen, I don't think, Shambliss and Goldberg use guts yet. Or have we? Am I just forgetting? I might just be repressing the memory.
Right.
Guts is back.
And we have to like look at we have to really look at how Alicia, as you intimated in the last episode, she she's not looking so good. And like
a little sweaty,
a little peaky. She says she's malnourished and all that like all of that jazz.
She tells Morgan she hasn't eaten in a week, but she's also like super upset that their camp just got irradiated by zombie dust. When she's like, all of our food was there. I'm like, if you had food there, why haven't you been eating in a week? And like, how are you supposed to be leading this group of people?
And there's like a ton of flashbacks and they do reveal some pretty crazy stuff. And ultimately, she has her bananas theory that zombies still have like an echo of themselves left in, hence her idea that the senator is going to get back to Padre. And that's what she's going to do with Morgan to try to find the safety zone. We still have Strand's soldiers all on their heels and looking for, gets to get them. It's just bizarre. And we finally get the reunion between Strand and Alicia. And it's a little bit like, I don't know.
Well, it's annoying, not least because Morgan had just gotten done like one scene earlier at saying to Alicia, look, I've been trying to set up communities and they all fail.
Right.
The last one only failed because of nuclear war. I don't know that you could have done anything about that, Morgan. It wasn't really your fault. Please come and be my right-hand lady. And then Strand gives her the exact same speech 20 seconds later, it feels like. Mm-hmm. And Morgan's just sitting there like, this is dumb. And I'm sitting there too going like, yeah, I feel like I'm having deja vu. And I don't like how overt the show is being with this like, oh, the duality, the binary nature of our moral dilemma here.
I know.
It's too basic.
It's too basic. And you have like basically Morgan and Strand both like fighting over her. And it's like, well, she can clearly lead on her own. So you're not really offering her exactly, that seems ridiculous to me.
Like come and be my number two is basically
their pitch to her. They're both of their pitches. And it's like, okay. And then the most annoying part of this episode is that, because in his whole confrontation between Morgan and Alicia, Strand is like, threatening to kill zombie senator, and Alicia throws herself between like Strand and
Morgan and the zombie
and she gets her arm bitten. Oh no. And so ridiculous. And then of course we see a little bit more about why she's okay, because actually her arm is fake. Like it's a mechanical arm, because in this like
and now it's a stabby
arm. So this is like a whole, flashback. This isn't her first run-in with the zombie senator, but she gets like, there's like a whole scene with her and Will, and the tunnel collapses, and they're on this thing with the senator, and he actually gets a good bite in on her in this place.
Mm-hmm.
And there is then like the whole flashback that she had managed to chop off her infected arm, which by the way is really, really hard.
She doesn't even have a knife. She has that stupid barrel of the Browning machine gun still. It has a bit of a sharp end, but it doesn't have like a blade. So
it doesn't. And so I would think that it would be very hard to get this off.
It's like the worst amputation ever. And it only underscores how idiotic her insistence that she got a fever from a zombie bite is later.
Right. But again, she survives it. She's got like, she wakes up, she's got her, like, she's being nursed back to health. And then she gets all the all the deets from Will, and she's kind of like, oh well, maybe I'm still not, because she has a fever and she wanted him to kill her, but she's like, hey, so there's like all that weirdness between them, and that was the whole mystery about what he wouldn't do with that they implied earlier. Again, kind of annoying.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like she's so convinced that she as a zombie is going to kill everybody when they have done nothing but like deball zombies this entire show. Like zombies are not a threat. So she's like, oh, if I turn into a zombie, a lot of people could die. Like, yeah, that's a season 1 concern,
right.
Alicia, and you're a season 7 person. So you should just be like, hey, you know what? Like, hey, I'm glad you didn't kill me because I'm alive. Right? I don't know. It's a stupid thing to be mad at Will about, is what I mean. Like, they're in this bunker with a bunch of people who Will might be a newbie, but all these other people have been in the zombie apocalypse for a long time. One zombie in the bunker, they already had one. It was called Senator Vasquez. Would be fine. These people would be okay.
Yeah, totally. One more, all good. And they sort of continue, like Morgan and Alicia are going to go and keep hopefully going towards Padre. And then they have this whole weird moment where they see the light in the sky and Alicia's like, oh my gosh, it's Padre. And Morgan's like, that's just Strand's tower.
Yeah, they go there anyway, which I thought was kind of funny.
I know. And
maybe she had to see it.
She had to see it to believe it. She's basically like,
it's so anticlimactic. Yeah, the dumb zombie just walks into the other wall of zombies, and Morgan's like, well, that's the end of that. Never going to see him again.
I know. And then, she's finally like, the virus is still like there, and I'm going to succumb to it in the future. So it's my hope that to find this Padre for everybody before I die. Again, how much loyalty does this woman have to the crazy lunatics in, that Teddy had left behind? Like, that to me is, again, a weird.
Yeah. And also just like, now that those people have all gone to the sub, they're just another group of filler people who are going to all die. And we've just seen this too many times to feel we're not going to feel anything for them. Like, what about the convoy people? Remember the convoy? The freaking Lawton, the freaking Lake Town. None of these places have meant anything, and the show does increasingly less and less work to make us feel anything for them, and it ends up being like meaningless. Like, great, so there's a bunch of people there, doesn't matter.
And they're just fodder, and they don't mean a thing. Like, we won't get any kind of info on them. And so we finally have the dark reunion between Alicia and Will, or zombified Will. And so she confirms that Strand had done this to him. And also, I don't know if this was smart, but he's basically like, yeah, he loved you. And she's all like, okay, I can't go along with Strand, which, again, I don't think she would have. Like, I just think this is all completely implausible. And now it's sort of like setting up the fact that there's going to be this huge conflict later.
I'm sorry, but this line that she pronounces at the end of this episode too, then we're going to war, and
right,
I laughed out loud.
I did too. I was just like, what is this? What? Anyway, just terrible. There
were one or two bright moments. Like I said, I like the song Welcome to Jamrock. Is that the only thing that I enjoyed about these 4 episodes? Maybe. Yeah. Maybe. We'll see if Alicia Tyler comes back. Part of me hopes that she runs far and far away from this show. Yeah, I've got no more interest in it, really. We have 8 more episodes to get through. They haven't announced that this is the last season, but I really wish it was.
Agree. We'll see, I suppose. We'll have to, I guess, like, plod through the rest of this season. But I suggest we probably, once it comes out, we do it in the same way, because I don't think I can do this piecemeal. But for now, we're putting this to bed. So if anybody has any commentary, thoughts, maybe you loved it, and if you did, I want to hear who loved it. And feel free to send us an email, reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet at us, reanimatedpcast, or leave a note on our website, reanimatedpodcast.com. And I don't know what we're talking about next week. What are we talking about next week?
Well, we have a few choices. We can either stay with Walking Dead and do season 11, or we can talk about Virus 32. There are other options. Maybe we should have a chat over the course of the coming week before we podcast again.
All right, we will do that. But until next time, ciao.
Thanks for listening, and bye.